Hi, I'm Holly. Welcome to your writing group. Today I want to talk about outlines and novel structure. I wish someone had told me before I delved into my first novel many years ago that having a structure could help. And I have tried just about every kind of outline. I have tried the very, very strict kind that comes in a spreadsheet and tells you by what page certain things have to happen. I found that too restrictive and regimented, and I need more like flow when I'm creating. I don't want to be thinking about where exactly a page in my book needs to land according to the arc or whatever. I've tried all sorts of different outlines. The one that I found that stuck, that I love, that I swear by, that I've been using for, I think, 10 or so years now, that has allowed me to actually finish books, is the one I'm going to share with you today. It is a loose novel outline, and it will allow you to easily move back and forth and change things as you go, because inevitably as we're writing we get surprised by what our characters do, what happens in the world. And for me, being able to react to that and being able to easily adjust the outline or the novel structure helps me stay on track, and it reminds me what I'm doing and what I'm building towards. And when you're first starting, a novel can feel big and unwieldy, and it is a lot of pages. So having a novel structure as you go allows you some sort of command over those pages. It's very hard to actually see all the pages at once. It's impossible. So having a structure, I found, really helps you feel in control. So when I'm starting, I usually come to the table with an idea. So I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you are in the phase and you have an idea or a character or some semblance of a plot, whether it's a beginning to an end, loosely, like you know what's starting and you kind of know where you want to end up. And then there's a ton of stuff in the middle. Whatever phase you're in right now, this should be able to help you flesh it out. So without further ado, the novel structure. So this is my novel structure that I swear by. It is based on the 3-act play. So you have Act 1, which is the opening to the plot point 1. Then you have the midsection, which takes you to plot point 2. And then you have Act 3, which is plot point to the catharsis and wrap up. So I'll tell you what all that means. You want to start really, really strong, obviously. In the opening scene, you want to introduce a world, a character. Everything needs to jump off the page right away. And I'll do another video on opening scenes, but this is one of the most important scenes in the entire book. It declares the mood and the tone along with the voice. And when it's done right, you really pull in your reader, and the reader needs to know more and why. So it's where you hook them. So the opening scene can't really be discounted, right? You want people to pick up your book in the bookstore and read that first page, and you want them to say, "Oh my gosh, I really need to read this entire thing," and then buy it. So that's your opening scene and what's so important there. Then between the opening scene and plot point 1, you want to do introductions and backstory as needed. Don't info dump. Don't put down all the backstory, because that's really boring for people to read, but we'll go into that another time too. You want to be crafty and concise as you go. And ultimately, all of the scenes from the opening to plot point 1 are leading up to plot point 1. So plot point 1 propels you into the heart of the novel. It is usually the end to something or the beginning of something, and it catapults your plot into action, and that could be your character into action or your world or a situation, whatever it is. It's an important milestone. Maybe your character finds out they got a job or they didn't get a job, for example, and those two things just sort of lead up to the rest of the book. It's also a shift. A character can make a decision or an action happens. It sets the midsection of the novel in motion, and it is likely the root cause of why your character is doing whatever she or he is doing. And in short, it's change. So as you can see, that's opening to plot point 1. And then you've got the midsection. So midsection can be sort of big and unwieldy, and it can feel meandering. So you need to always be sure you know why you're writing a scene. Ask yourself, as soon as you sit down and you're writing a new scene, ask yourself, does this move the plot forward? Even if it's in a tiny way, even if it's changing your character's mind or another character's mind, if it is a conversation that your character needs to have in order to get to another place. Whatever it is, there has to be a nugget of a reason why that scene is justified to be where it is. And keep in mind that there's a lot of scenes that will just never make it into the final novel that you just feel like you have to write. And that's okay too. But in the end, after your first draft, you will definitely go back and say, does this scene need to be here? So in this section, there is a scene at the midpoint. And the scene at the midpoint is a memorable but not dramatic high point. Oftentimes it's a scene where a character tells the protagonist what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear. It could also be a sex scene, which shows a pivotal moment in a relationship. So it can be a lot of different things, but there's something that is maybe a little bit more nuanced and important about that scene at the midpoint. And that will carry you, and the story from there will build and build. Tension is ratcheting up from the scene at the midpoint to plot point 2. At plot point 2, and as you can see, that's, you're doing really well with your novel if you're already at plot point 2. So at plot point 2, everything is a mess. It is every little string that you've been plotting and building up to this point comes to fruition here. So regardless of the story, it's where the characters are failing and struggling and fighting against the odds of whatever it is. Things don't look good. Whatever is the world and whatever is the aim of the character, they are being thwarted big time in this moment at plot point 2. So you're definitely building up to that dramatic high point there. Then you have the catharsis. So that is the big epiphany. That is when the person gets what they want or doesn't get what it is. It's instrumental. It's often emotional. It is what happens after the big mess and the character finishes their journey or lands the job or lands the girl. And it's that scene. And then after that, it's the easy part. It's where you tie it all together with the wrap-up scene, which often mirrors the open scene. It's lyrical and beautiful and, gives a shout back to your first chapter. Go back and read your first chapter before you write your last chapter. And that is when just everything comes together as you see it for the end of your book. Happy or sad. The way to get to these places is through exercises that I'm going to tell you about now. This will help you grow your scenes from the beginning. So grab your pen and paper and write down 20 scenes that you know need to be in the novel. 20 scenes that are going to take you just throughout, that are high points that make you excited about writing them, whether it's an argument or some catastrophe, weather event, I don't know. Whatever it is, write your most important scenes that you already know need to be in the novel. Number 2 is put stars next to the 5 or 6 that most attract you and most inspire you to write them, so that you can always go back to those things and say, you know what? I don't know where I am right now, but I can write that one scene that I'm super excited about. So there's that. Number 3 is pick a scene from the top 20 that you just wrote as your opening scene. Highly recommend doing something that is within the action, action-oriented, jumping your character into the scene, not something sort of sedate and, boring. You want something that really jumps out at you, that will jump out at your reader. Next is number 4. You want to pick a plot point 1 from that list. Now, once you do that, and remember plot point 1 is when something changes and sets off the action or really the movement of the book. So then you want to take the next 15 minutes, and feel free to pause now. Take 15 minutes to write down as many scenes as you can think of that your character would have to go through to get from the opening scene to plot point one. So as many as you can. You can include some from the list of 20, totally fine, but just know that these scenes are going to help you to get to that plot point one. Okay. Number 6 is to pick a midpoint scene. The scene I was saying is sort of it's a pivotal moment probably in your character's life, but not in the grand scheme of things. So typically it may also be in that list of 20, maybe not, but try and see what is in your list of 20 to pluck from and figure out what you're excited about that could be a midpoint scene. Number 7, again, you want to take another 15 minutes, feel free to pause, and go from plot point 1 to the midpoint. How many scenes can you write that will get your character to that next scene? Now, after this, you're going to continue this strategy. So you'll go from midpoint to plot point 2, and then from plot point 2 to catharsis, and then from catharsis to the wrap up. So there's no hard and fast rule about how many scenes, but write from your gut, and don't worry if you are failing to come up with a ton of scenes. It's just about getting your mind to really think about the meat of the story and to let you know, hey, I have a lot of material to work with here. My character is going to do so many things. And it's just a good way to digest what you are about to take on when you're writing a novel. So that is my novel writing process, and I hope you find it really helpful. You guys are at a really exciting part. If you're watching this, it means you're at the beginning or somewhere in the beginning, and it means that you have all those pages left to write, but in a good way. I mean, it's like my favorite part of the writing process is during this part, because you don't know what you don't know yet, and that's kind of the fun. You're about to go on a really big journey. So let me know in the comments how it's going for you, and if you use this, please tell me if you like it, if you don't like it, if you use something else. And best of luck to you. Thank you so much for watching.